The Fourth Amendment, again, what does happiness include? It's the right of the people to be secure in their persons, their houses, their papers, their effects, against unreasonable searches and seizures, and it shall not be violated. No warrants shall issue but upon probable cause. You have to get a warrant to search somebody's house. There has to be a reason to have the warrant, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. It has to be very specific. That's, of course, one of the things in the Arizona law that they're concerned about racially profiling Mexicans. Is not true, because they have to have probable cause to stop them, and they're actually within the framework of the Constitution. In fact, they have more protection than the federal law in that area. The Fifth Amendment, one, everybody's aware of that one, and that's the one where you can take the Fifth Amendment, you have a right against self-incrimination. But it also says no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in case arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger as to the militia. So clearly there was an exception for the military. So the military has its own code of military justice, which, of course, they're trying to undermine that. While we're in Washington, they were voting, the House voted on the Don't Ask, Don't Tell, to make it free for homosexuals to serve in the military. The Senate has not voted yet. Hopefully the Senate will stop that, because that's just the first step. You know, they played a civil rights argument that we just want to be treated equally. You can bet the first thing is going to happen as soon as they pass that you're going to have a couple in Massachusetts, male, or female, either going to join the National Guard or they're going to active duty, and you're going to start requiring military chaplains to perform same-sex marriages. That's the destruction of the military. The military justice system already has in it prohibition against adultery, against sodomy, against all of this thing. And right now we're talking to chaplains. Right now they are already having more problems with sexual harassment or sexual violence between male and female than they have male-female in the military. It's already happening. This is going to open a door to it. So clearly they saw the need to have separate rights and privileges for the people in the military, a separate set of law, particularly in times of war, in order to protect the military from things that might be happening in the civilian world. As far as the next part of it, where it says, the next part, of course, is you can't be subject to the same offense, be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. If you're found not guilty and they come up with new evidence, they cannot retry you for the same capital offense. So even if you turn out and confess afterwards, like O.J. Simpson, If I Did It, wrote the book that nobody bought, but he was actually going to confess to what he did. He was already found innocent, so he could write a book, make money on it, and they couldn't bring him back and try him again because it says you can't do that. You cannot be tried for the same offense twice or put in jeopardy of life or limb. And then, of course, the one we're most familiar with, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now, that last part is something the Supreme Court just messed up in Connecticut just 2 years ago. They ruled that public use includes something that will bring in more revenue. So they decided you can take people's homes and put it in a shopping center. You can take those homes, give them to a private developer because that will bring in more tax revenue than the homes did. That is not what the Constitution had in mind. Public use was exactly that. I did eminent domain law, and actually public use, you had to show that there was a need, there was a necessity to take that particular property. In fact, if you wanted to put a school in, you had to show that was the only site, only reasonable site to use. Highways, it's easy. The highway has to go straight. But any other public use, you had to demonstrate why you had to take that particular property. Now they come along and say, well, any public use. So if they think they can generate more revenue by taking your property for a stadium, which ironically they did when they built Dodger Stadium in 1962. Of course, they took a Hispanic ghetto, and those people didn't have the money or the lawyers to fight it like the people in Connecticut did, but they actually took a Hispanic ghetto and bought it and gave it to the Dodgers. They gave it to private enterprise to build Dodger Stadium. That's not what the Constitution required. That's not what this amendment was about, not taking the property unless for public use and without just compensation. They have to pay you the full value of the property. Now, we've developed something in the last several years that actually does that without just compensation. That's the whole environmental laws. If they decide that your property has contributed to pollution in any way, they actually they can claim this whole neighborhood is subject to pollution. In California, there was an area, we knew the source of the pollution originally was one of the defense contractors, but it covered a whole valley, a whole area. Every property in that area is under the cloud of this environmental pollution. They will not deal with you individually. So however long it takes them to get around to decide how to clean up the so-called Superfund site, you actually have a cloud on your property, you can't sell your property, and the value is actually going down. That's taking your property without just compensation under environmental laws, which obviously something should not happen. Because what they're going to do is they're going to wait till it bottoms out, and then they're going to say, okay, now we're going to take it. But what the cloud they've put on your property in the meantime, even though you are not the polluter, they know who the polluter was, it's a large corporation, they won't let you off the hook. And so you're stuck until such time as they come to some kind of agreement to clean up the area. You've got a cloud on your property. The value is going down. You can't refinance because somebody's worried about the environmental cleanup costs. So they're actually violating the Fifth Amendment. The sixth is obviously the right to a speedy trial and partial jury, and also has to be in the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed. So they can't take people into another state without you actually applying for a change of venue. They can't take you somewhere else to try you. And you have to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation. So that's part of the Miranda rights. If they, it's the Fifth Amendment and the Sixth, in that when they arrest you, they have to tell you what you're being charged with, and you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and may be used against you in a court of law. You're entitled to an attorney. If you can't afford one, will be appointed for you. We actually have that same provision in the Military Justice Code. We had it before Miranda. It's Article 31 of the UCMJ. You have the right to be confronted with the witnesses against you, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in your favor, so they have to provide you with the means to call witnesses. They can't say, well, you can't afford it, it's tough. And you have the assistance of counsel, of course, for your defense, so that's the public defender's office and that sort of situation. Now, we get into situations where they decide that we have rape between husband and wife. Now, tell me how you're going to be confronted with the witnesses against you. Is your word against their word? How can that possibly be? God knew that. He said you have to have at least 2 witnesses to any crime. So how can you have a rape between husband and wife that occurs in their home, and somebody, unless people are voyeurs, nobody's been witness to this, and it's sort of ridiculous, but that's something we've now obviously violated the Sixth Amendment. The Seventh Amendment in suits at common law, where the value of controversy shall exceed $20, I think it's a little bit higher than that now, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined by any court in the United States.
Join us next time as we continue in our study of the Word of God. We are located at 60 Bailey Ave in Manchester, New Hampshire. Sunday service time starts at 10:30 a.m. You can browse our website at www.calvarymv.org. May your spirit be filled with God's abundance now and for all eternity.